Hello, seventh grade. It's Mr. Batts. And I'm here with my assistants. There's Hayes and Peyton. Okay, see you guys. They are here because they're always here, day and night, every time I turn around. Uh, but I thought today that we are going to do Chapter 8, Section 3 notes. We're skipping ahead one section to the end of the chapter. I'm going to try to keep this really short, under 10 minutes. You do not have to write these down. These are just FYI. I will send the copy of the entire slideshow in Google Classroom and on Remind today also. And then I'm going to send you a short quiz just to see that you understand what you're getting. It's a Google form. You just turn it in Google Classroom, and I will take a look at those as I get them. Just do your best. Don't worry about making everything perfect. Just do the best you can. Quiet, guys. And so anyway, I just I'm tired of talking to my daughter's dolls and my son's wrestling toys. And so I trying to get this back to as normal as possible. And so I know that we're all miss being in school. We all miss terrible dad jokes. I have one for you. What do you call a hippie's wife? Mrs. Hippie. But anyway, so we'll go through these notes really quickly. I will send you the copy home. Do your best and turn in the quiz or reading check, whatever you want to call it, by the end of the week. And so you do not have to write these down. I'm not going to come to your house, notebook check. That's not good social distancing. You need to be washing your hands. Keep safe. Let me know in the comments in here, in Google Classroom, on Remind how you're doing, what you need from me. Make sure you keep it appropriate. Say hi to your classmates, whatever you need to do. So we're going to talk about the first political parties, as you can see on the screen. Washington, everybody really respected him as a leader, but Jefferson and his followers did not agree with everything he was doing. And so Washington felt that he was above politics. He was like, I'm not going to get in the middle of this argument between Hamilton and Jefferson. They were arguing about everything. Jefferson, Hamilton, Jefferson, Hamilton, Jefferson, Hamilton. They began to split. And so Jefferson got mad because, and if you have siblings, you've seen this before, your parents are like, well, I'm not going to take sides. But then one of you is like, oh, you always take his side. You always take her side. And so Washington really believed in a strong central government. Again, from the Whiskey Rebellion and from Shays' Rebellion, he was afraid of farmers shooting people. And so he always would take the side that was with John Adams, was with Alexander Hamilton, and Jefferson more and more started to feel alienated, left out. And so even though Washington said we should not create political parties, two political parties, even by the first election that Washington wasn't involved in, we had two political parties. The Federalist, which originally, as you know, because you did so well on that test, meant somebody that supported the Constitution, but it came to mean those who followed Washington, and in addition to him, John Adams, and Alexander Hamilton. And then Jefferson's followers began to be called Democratic Republicans, sometimes just called Republicans, sometimes called Jeffersonian Republicans. And so they believed in small government, more farming. They were different. They believed that the people should run the show, not just a small group of federally elected employees. They also did this thing where they argued over what the Constitution actually says. Implied powers is a big issue. Implied powers, to imply something means to say it without saying it. And so you've used this with your parents a lot. You've done something that you know you're not supposed to, and your mom or your dad or whoever is in charge of you says, well, I didn't tell you you could do that. And you say, and you think you're being really smart, well, you didn't say I couldn't. And so this is basically the exact argument over the Constitution. Jefferson thought you could only do what the Constitution says exactly you can do, whereas Hamilton and John Adams and George Washington said, well, if it doesn't say we can't, then we can. By the way, don't try this with your parents now. They're probably pretty tired of being in shelter in place with you, and so they don't need that kind of stuff. But you get the idea. It doesn't say that we can create a national bank is one argument, but then the other argument was it doesn't say that we cannot do that, and so if it doesn't say we can't, then we can. And so this is the big issue. And so Federalists supported a stronger central government. They didn't trust people. People sometimes aren't to be trusted. In large groups, we make bad decisions, you know. And so, it's called mob mentality. And so Republicans feared a strong central government controlled by a few people. Federalists feared mob mentality. And so this is really the big issue in our early days of setting up our country under the new Constitution. And so Washington and Hamilton and Jefferson, they all worked together. They were on Washington's cabinet. They couldn't get along, though. And so Jefferson got so fed up that he quit his job. He was Secretary of State. Hamilton resigned as Secretary of Treasury, and they split further and further apart. As I said in class before we left for break, Adams and Jefferson actually became bitter enemies until they were about to die, and they wrote a bunch of letters and made up, and then died on the same day, which is July 4th, which was a symbolic, thing. So our first election without George Washington, remember, said, "I'm out of here. I'm only serving 2 terms." 22nd Amendment became later. So John Adams, he wins with 71 electoral votes. Jefferson finishes second with 68. And so before the 12th Amendment, which is the election of president and vice president, if you finish first, you're the president. If you finish second, you're the vice president. And so Adams was a Federalist, and he was the president, and Jefferson was a Democrat, a Democratic Republican, a Jeffersonian Republican, and he's now the vice president, and they don't really get along. And so the first administration under Washington had a Federalist president, Republican vice president. By the way, Aaron Burr was supposed to be Jefferson's vice presidential candidate, and that did not work out. However, in 1800, he will run again for vice president under Jefferson, and this time it turns out a lot differently, and Aaron Burr went nuttier than an elephant turd, which we're going to get to in the next chapter, and it ends up with, you'll see. And so John Adams is president. We're arguing with France. He sends people to talk it out. Talleyrand, the minister of France, won't even talk to Americans without accepting a bribe. And so he sends 3 dudes out. They call them X, Y, and Z because we won't even mention their names. It's like we're so mad at them that we're like, we're calling them X, Y, and Z. We're not calling them by their names. And so this is a first international incident. And so then we started having some undeclared war with France. We started passing laws that basically limited what people could say in criticism of the government, which goes directly in the face of the First Amendment. You can criticize the government if you want without going to jail, but we passed the Alien and Sedition Act. And again, this angered a lot of Democratic Republicans, I should say, who felt that our rights under the Bill of Rights were not being upheld. And so Virginia and Kentucky say, we're not even accepting these laws. And this is going to become a big thing. Can states nullify laws? And when you get into the Civil War, a lot of people say that's what the Civil War was about. For states to say that we can make our own laws, but it was really about slavery. And so Adams is under pressure from both sides. He's getting pressure from the Republicans because they don't feel their rights are being met. He's getting pressure from the Federalists because they feel like France is stepping all over us and we need to go to war. And so things are not going great. And so by the time 1800 comes around and we got to elect another president, it's looking like pretty clearly Jefferson's going to win. Spoiler, he does. But anyway, so the notes I will send to you, you can see this at your own pace. You don't have to listen to my fast talking and see obviously barbers are closed. And then I will send you a quiz in the Google Classroom today and via Remind. Just do the best you can. Turn that in by the end of the week. And like I said, keep comments appropriate, but say hi and say, hi to me, hi to your classmates or whatever you feel like doing. We're all sick of being in the house. And I will see you later. Bye.